think it is?
I did some research and some dating, and it appears to be some sort of hominin-made stone tool from 50,000 years ago.
50,000 years ago, you think it was made by the Neanderthals?
I believe so. The date is before Homo sapiens probably would have arrived here based on other fossil finds. But it's strange. There's drawing on the tool. What do you think that means?
It could just be random scratches.
Or it could be art, like a way to identify the tool.
Now hang on a minute.
This could help further prove that Neanderthals had symbolic thinking and culture.
Now before we jump to any conclusions, we need to figure out how to research and present this to the scientific community and the public.
What do you mean?
Good scientific outreach is the key to helping the public understand complicated evolutionary ideas, such as the possibility that culture is not something that is uniquely human.
So how do you think we should handle this?
Well, first, we could present our research to a scientific congress to get the opinion of the scientific community. Then we publish a report in a highly ranked scientific journal, but before it's published, we give the international scientific writers the paper weeks in advance so they can test and review our findings. Then after the report is published, we go ahead and do things like making a documentary to reenact and present our research, or we publish a more accessible scientific book. What do you think?
Well, you know I hate the traditional method. It just takes so long to reach the public. And by the time it reaches large audiences, the information may be outdated. And it's written in inaccessible language to the general public. It requires a vast knowledge of science to understand. I mean, besides scientists and honor students trying to find sources for their research papers, who's going to read it?
But it allows for more accurate scientific information since our work will be reviewed by many scientists from many different backgrounds before it gets published.
Okay, but hear me out. What if we used a similar method to the EDA research team? That team really wanted to make their work accessible by showing the process of scientific research, not just the result. So how about first, we start a website to post research updates on. We'll also work on writing a book and making a television documentary while we're working on the scientific paper. Then, once the scientific paper is done, we'll release it through open access channels at the same time as our book and documentary. How does that sound to you?
Well, that sounds great in theory, but the team's public claims that EDA represents some missing link in human evolution just to gain the public's interest were mostly false, with the scientific publication itself suggesting that EDA was closely related to haplorines like monkeys and apes, which, by the way, many scientists disagreed with, saying that EDA was in fact a strepsirrhine, or more closely related to lemurs, and not in the human lineage at all. The team didn't consult with the scientific community as much as it should have. Furthermore, these exaggerated claims, which had to be subsequently retracted, exposed evolutionary biology to unwelcome criticism.
Yeah, but you have to admire how their media blitz and popular forms of media allowed them to communicate their information in a real-time manner in a language that popular audiences could understand. Releasing all these things at once made these ideas about evolution accessible.
That's fair, but how do we make our scientific research accessible to the public without risking our scientific integrity?
I have an idea. Well, I've heard of this model for more effective scientific outreach by Joanna Varner. She suggests 3 major steps to scientific outreach: development, implementation, and evaluation.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. In the development phase, we could start by defining what our goals are for presenting our research and what we hope to find. Then we can collaborate with other scientists as well as other non-scientific organizations to make sure our scientific research goals are sound, be corroborated by other scientists as we do our research, and make sure that we are tailoring our outreach to a specific public so it's both accessible and easy to understand.
That sounds great! Then as we begin to implement our outreach and do our research, we can use social media forums to communicate with that specific public. We can explain already known concepts related to our research, present what we hope to find, and facilitate a dialogue with community input that can help us guide our research. Of course, we'll make sure that we don't make any bold claims that won't be reflected in our final report or are false.
Yes, and when it comes time to evaluate and share our results, we can incorporate both what we've learned from the public and other scientists we've worked with into our methods of outreach. We can then do a wide release of both the scientific report through open access databases and scientific literature, as well as more public-friendly outlets like online video or social media. This way, we're both releasing material that is accessible to the public, but also that is scientifically accurate and tested.
This sounds so much better. I I think it's really important that we get the public's feedback on our research so they not only receive the information, but are also able to share what they may know.
After all, Marner does say, although objectives and envisioned outcomes will inevitably vary widely among scientists and institutions, I argue that effective outreach should be less about building consensus on controversies and more about building capacity, fostering mutual trust, and achieving a shared understanding of the relevant science. And I think that's very important too.
So why don't we go get started?